Nestled in the intersection of the Sierra Nevada and the Cascade Mountain ranges of California lies the rustic Indian Valley. People have been hang gliding here for decades, but it's not very well known because of its remoteness. It's very windy in the valley due to a passing front, and it's 10 gusting to 20 miles per hour from the southwest at launch. We wait until 3:30 p.m. for it to cool down a bit and take extra care to not get blown off. It's my first time launching here, and it feels smoother than I expected. There is a lot of thermic ridge lift that makes it easy to get to the top of the ridge 500 feet over launch, where it's easier to thermal. We are flying from the northeastern side of the valley, off Gerry Ridge. This launch was created only a few months ago by the locals, after the severe wildfires from last year burned off most of the trees on this ridge. My goal for today's flight is to first fly to Gerry Peak, 10 miles to the west, then fly 12 miles south to Mount Huff across the valley, and finally 8 miles north to land. The middle leg will be difficult in the strong headwind. The lift at launch gets weaker over 7,000 feet, so I head west and take a few strong climbs to over 9,000 feet. Gerry Ridge forms the boundary between Lassen and Plumas National Forests. This part of the ridge peaks at 6,400 feet before dropping off at the Greenville Saddle. I cross the gap careful for signs of stronger venturi winds and arrive at Gerry Peak, the highest point of the ridge, 7,400 feet. There's good, strong, and smooth lift here that takes me over 11,000 feet. Lake Almanor to the west looks really beautiful against the evening light. It's an important reservoir formed by the Canyon Dam on the North Fork of the Feather River. To the north is Mountain Meadows Reservoir, which collects water from the numerous creeks in the northern valley and feeds Lake Almanor. The Little Homer Lake behind Gerry Peak is an alpine lake formed from snowmelt, just like the smaller Deer Heart and Hidden Lakes. I'm able to get to 12,000 feet here, which is higher than I expected. So I decide to use the altitude and continue southeast towards Mount Huff. Flying over Greenville, I'm saddened to see the damage from the Dixie fire of August 2021, which was the single largest fire in California history, burning almost 1 million acres, including several towns in this area. But few locals have abandoned the valley. They are committed to rebuilding. Round Valley Reservoir to the south of the town shows the strong 20 miles an hour crossing headwind. The glide I need to reach the top of Huff is 12 to 1, but my best glide is quite poor at 8 to 1, and I'm not going to make it to the peak. I do not want to be low behind the mountain in the lee side rotor zone, so I decide to turn back and try the whole triangle again. I zoom downwind at 60 miles an hour and arrive back at the launch ridge. To extend my triangle distance, I fly to the eastern edge of the ridge first. On a less windy day, I would like to fly across the north arm of the valley to the mountains on the other side. Continuing with the plan, I work my way back west along Gerry Ridge. The predictable thermals allow me time to contemplate the fire damage this area has endured, and I see positive signs of recovery in the forest. A good climb to 10,000 feet allows me to cross the saddle back to Gerry Peak, where the same strong lift as before takes me to 12,000 feet again. I can see Dyer Mountain Lookout at the end of the ridge, but it's not a good idea to fly any more west since there are no landable areas, and I'm already quite far and downwind from the fields in Indian Valley, but I trust the performance of my glider. It's time to try for Mount Huff again, and this time I'm careful to conserve my altitude, and luckily I find a good lift line that feels like convergence. It keeps me high as I cross Greenville and Hunodim Peak towards Crescent Mills. I'm still at 11,000 feet, and I'm sure that I can arrive high at Huff. But then I hit a wall of stronger wind and sink, killing my glide ratio to just 5 to 1. I lose 3,000 feet in the last 3 miles and arrive at Huff barely over it, but it's enough to take a quick look at the beautiful crystal lake on it. I've heard of people flying from the peak of Huff across Crystal Lake in the early mornings. After a fun 3 hours, it's time to land. Since my camera battery died before landing, I have to show you the landing from the next day. We have a choice of good landing fields in the valley. The two usual ones are Dave's Place and Snow White. Since I see more gliders down at Snow White, I head there. Unfortunately, the horses here always get spooked from approaching gliders. The wind is strong, but I still have a long and bumpy ground effect, but luckily a soft touchdown. What an amazing flight in an amazing place. I highly recommend flying here if you can.